getting started. What's up, chat room? Share the show. Let them know we're here. Getting up and running. Facebook's up. Instagram is up. They should be in alignment, one would think. We're on YouTube, excellent. And Twitch is good. We're even on that catastrophe known as Rumble. Hold on one second. I can't change the name once we're on there. Never mind. Oops. Error occurred. Please try later. All right. Save. All right. There we go. And maybe we're up on there. On Tumble, we'll see. 3, 2, 1, and we don't know. There we go. Yep, up. There we go. And Phil is here, and we're ready to go. Give me 1 second, everybody, and so much to do. Welcome to the morning show, everybody. It's Hal Sparks. It's Hal Sparks Morning Show, Megaworldwide. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. We got a lot of things to talk about, not the least of which is that a monkey wrench was thrown into American foreign policy, the likes of which we have not seen since, I would almost say, Pearl Harbor. And to parse through it today and try to figure if there's any sense into, I was about to say to help us make sense of it, but I don't even know if there's any sense to be made. Philip Ittner joins us from Kyiv right now. And there was a particular piece of news that we were talking about right before we came on the air about how Trump's language about Ukraine has curiously changed in the last, maybe week or so. And you thought it might be because he's actually getting briefings now and he sees who's actually winning and losing?
I think so. I think that might be part of it. And I mean, not just military briefings, but he could also be getting State Department briefings.
Right.
From the Russia desk where they and the Ukraine desk where they break it down what's at stake here for both nations, the potential for escalation, what does this mean for Europe, and subsequently for us as trading partners with Europe and allies with Europe, at least for now.
Mm-hmm.
I think he may recognize that this is his war to lose, that if the status quo, if the shooting were to stop today, right now, immediately, that this would be a clear victory for Ukraine, that it would be really bad news for Putin.
Right.
Putin doesn't hold Odessa. So he doesn't have dominion over the Black Sea, which means that one of the major reasons for the war, which is the naval base at Sevastopol, is no longer viable for the Russians. That's an acquisition made by Catherine the Great, 300 some odd years ago, and is a huge thing on their cultural sense of identity and their strategic capabilities. They've always wanted a warm water port.
Right.
And that's really the only one they have is Sevastopol. I mean, they have the Arctic and they have the Baltic Sea. So, as we've explained before, but I'll just run through it quickly. Russia has 4 main fleets. They have an Arctic fleet stationed inside the Arctic Circle, the town called Murmansk, which is where the Gulf Stream ends up. So it's relatively open, longer than you would expect. Being in the Arctic Circle, I've been to Murmansk. It is a hellscape. That's where the Kursk submarine went down, if you remember back.
Yeah.
In the very, very beginning term of Putin's time. Then they have the Baltic Sea, which is now blocked in because Sweden and Finland have joined NATO. So the Baltic Sea is now actually what's being referred to as a NATO lake. So he's lost control of that fleet. And then he's lost control of the Black Sea Fleet, which is the one that's based in Sevastopol here in Crimea. And then he's lost the Syrian. They have like a half fleet or they have facilities, deep water facilities in Syria, or they had, where they could rearm and refit at the eastern edge of the Mediterranean. Well, they've lost that as well under Putin. So then finally you've got the Pacific Fleet, which is located all the way over past Siberia in Vladivostok on the Pacific Ocean.
Right.
And that is not, that is more, that is a very difficult base to maintain, because you have to really support it by waterways, because for months out of the year, it's really difficult to transport, especially like heavy material from Western European Russia all the way out to the Pacific. This is devastating. This has been devastating for him. This is the worst. This is the worst Russian leader since. I mean, I guess it would be Nikolai. It would be, the last Romanov czar who was, executed, the Romanovs. Putin's been a disaster for the country, and if they stop being jingoistic and patriotically following along that the war must be prosecuted, the second the shooting stops, Putin's going to be in a lot of trouble, and his economy is in the crap. He is in the crapper.
Right. Yeah.
That strategic loss of naval power, which is really important to Russia, that has been massively damaged. And you're going to cross the 1 million man casualty mark before this war is ended. They won't conclude talks before that happens. So maybe Trump is looking at this and realizing that really the more likely person to come out of their country to come out of this stronger is Ukraine. And then, of course, we have to talk about the heavy metals thing.
Yeah, he brought up rare earth, not rare earth minerals or
Not
rare
heavy
earth
metals.
materials. He
Rare
just
earth,
said he just kept saying rare earth over and over again. And again, free land on the surface of the planet is rare earth, I guess, technically speaking. So all of it's rare. But that said, one of the things that turned yesterday, which there are areas where Putin could do himself some favors and, maybe manipulate Trump into helping him out a little bit and those kind of things. He seems beyond that. But maybe he just doesn't have the mental capability to process it right now, or he's just too pissed, or it's just they're too far gone into this strategy. But yesterday, after Trump's whole Mexico and Canada tariff thing, Russia, which has its biggest embassy, I believe, in Mexico, opened its currency market to Mexico for trade. And, now a couple of caveats. There's a but in the story, which is the fuck good is it being in the Russian currency market right now? It's more like a symbolic gesture. And plus, there's no way there's not a retaliation or a sanctions issue if they move this direction now. If they'd have done it a long time ago and it was about getting them out of that market, it's one thing. But if they're entering it for the first time, then you really got problems. Then it looks strategic and it looks like an affront to the United States. So, and that could kick back in the 25, in a month or whatever. But the fact that Russia is offering these things to Mexico, whether Mexico takes it or not, can't be seen by Trump as a friendly move in that regard. It's got to be seen as, even if he just hears about it in the dumbest possible terms, it's fairly easy to grasp that this is not, Putin trying to do him a favor. And moving into, this whole, there's an ocean between us bullshit that he always sells, right? That falls apart when Russia starts making moves with Mexico.
Yeah, and then they already have good ties in South America as well. There's a lot of countries that I think it's Venezuela that gets fighter jets.
Yeah,
I had a friend one time who was translating from Russian into Spanish, the kind of technical manuals for the Sukhoi 37 or something like that. I forget which exactly it was. Yeah, I mean, and they're in our backyard, and I'm we'll see. I don't know. That relationship to me, the Trump-Putin relationship to me is very convoluted, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes.
Right.
One day, I hope down the road, when Putin is gone and when Trump is gone, hopefully someday we will get to the bottom of what that
Right.
relationship was. And I think it's in a relationship that is in flux. It's changing. Trump is in a different place than he was during his first administration.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, hold on.
So I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be buddies anymore. I don't know who's the dom and who's the sub,
right?
Or what their safe word is. But that's a very odd relationship. There's something going on there that we don't know about.
Right.
There is something behind the curtain, and it's distressing. But it also could be that the relationship is soured, or maybe they're looking at it a different way, or maybe Trump is now off his leash, or if he ever was on one.
Right.
I contend he was. We'll see. And then there is the transactional nature of the rare earth elements. Okay, so those rare earth elements are primarily out east. Okay, the center of Ukraine is mostly agribusiness. That's what that territory is. There's what's called there's this black soil that exists in this basin that is west of the Dnieper River and runs pretty much all the way, not all the way, but to the Carpathian Mountains. And it's just rich as hell. And you can grow anything there. That's why it's the breadbasket of Europe, or even the world, really. We had that episode with the correspondent, Philip Obaji, down in Africa, talking about how much Africa relies on Ukrainian food. Well, that's the reason. So the vast majority of Ukraine, not the vast, the majority of Ukraine is benefits from this agribusiness issue. On the other side of the river, there are these deposits of rare earth and other materials. There's lithium, there's uranium,
right?
But then
there's
also
tungsten,
there's not so tungsten, I think, is there. There's a whole list of
it's why the Soviets put the factories where they did, quite frankly, is because a lot of the stuff, the primary like metal mining that's close by, there's a lot of derivative stuff that's right next to that, that's now important, that wasn't important back then. Also, for the record, everybody, rare earth materials are not rare, and they are not in singular places in the earth. They are just parts per million in the ground. There's a lot of them. And the density of it is a matter of minor, degree of percentages. And so one of the biggest, like the United States has an enormous, just discovered rare earth deposit right here outside of Las Vegas. Used to be an old strip mining facility. They did a test of the ground there, and there's enough for the United States is used for the next probably 50 years. And so part of this is control over those things as well. So that if, let's say, we don't get them or we don't need them, making sure China doesn't get them or Iran doesn't get them or Pakistan or the Taliban doesn't get them via Russia is now part of the strategy. Whether Trump knows this or not is another thing entirely. Whether his DOD and Pentagon chiefs are telling him the truth about the fact that this is just strategy for the future, or whether he thinks we need these things and they're telling him that story, it's hard to say.
Yeah, look, and for them, no, these are a resource that apparently is, valued in the trillions of dollars, potentially. And so it's nothing to thumb your nose at.
Right.
Having said that, Russia is a vast nation. They don't really need a sliver of Ukraine for a couple $1 trillion. Now, again, not to poo-poo a couple $1 trillion. That's it's going to benefit anybody's economy. But Russia is enormous with a lot of other reserves.
Right.
I do not think Russia is in the east of Ukraine to grab
I
those
agree.
rare earth materials. Doesn't hurt, not their main priority.
Right.
Um,
And there's no situation
so
where let's say to that point, Putin makes a deal, says, look, if we take that area, we'll give you the rare earth minerals in the Donbass at a cheaper rate than whatever they would give you, whatever. Well, either way, what happens if that occurs? U.S. businesses, U.S. personnel, U.S. security forces, whatever, end up in that area because if it's a strategically important mineral, you're going to have some level of security force around it, which means if the Russians want a salami slice through Ukraine again, either whatever way, whether it's because we have a deal with Ukraine or we have a deal with Russia, they're going to have to go through American human lives to do it.
yeah,
I mean,
and you know, they so again, okay, so Russia doesn't necessarily need this stretch of land for their
right.
Ukraine, however, wants it because it's for their security reasons and their economic reasons. There are economic reasons,
And it's
obviously.
their land
they
to
want
start
that
with,
stuff.
right?
And it's their land to start with.
Yeah.
So, you know, what I'm wondering is how would this deal work out? And are we looking at the possibility of, you know, because Trump is so transactional, for him to look at this asset that he thinks he's going to get, you know, for pennies on the dollar or whatever it is, that he will support a more aggressive stance for Ukraine to regain that territory.
Yeah.
Which would be a win for Ukraine, no matter how transactional things would end up being eventually.
Again, and that's one of those situations where, like, you know, it's like applauding, you know, what is the old Monty Python sketch of the upper class twit of the year, where people are cheering on these morons trying to do like the simplest of tasks. There's an element to that in a couple of areas, like removing pesticides from food and those kind of things, that because Trump has promised everyone everything in the most big and beautiful and gorgeous and easy and bold and strong and wonderful way possible, that there's something to cheer for, even if it's at the expense of the other stuff that his real supporters are cheering for. And I think that has value. It's a strategy the Russians have used over and over again, where you take one sentence of something somebody said and just use it as a pressure point. That's possible within Trump's kind of vision of the world. By the way, the mild update in what you were talking about Syria, the Sparta and the Sparta II are arms shipment vessels who are returning from Syria. They're just coming through the Strait of Sicily, loaded with gear that used to be in Syria and is now headed back to Russia to be used in the war. They basically are packing up everything that's there. The assumption is that is lost. For all the talk about Iran using Hezbollah as a control point, right? And having this proxy war going on, and these are the Wagner of Iran or something like that. The reality is that Russia dumped a shit ton of money into stirring up shit in Israel and in the Middle East to keep the U.S. busy there. And this whole Trump Gaza thing, I would argue, is probably more of that nonsense. That said, because the Hezbollah, we now know, was getting the arms they used, and some of the stuff that Hamas was getting was transferred through a base in Syria that Russia ran. It was literally just an arms trading facility. It was not a genuine military outpost of the Russian military. It was simply a bazaar where they sold guns and ammo and artillery shit, right? And they seem to be packing it up, which is in and of itself might speak to why Trump thinks he can speak so boldly about what's going on in Gaza, because Iran, one of the ways that Iran got its arms to its proxies was via help from the Russians, cover from the Russians. They couldn't set up their own base per se in without it being obvious that they were on Assad's side in Syria or in any of these other territories. So they had to bounce it through something that looks like it's innocuous, right? It was a transfer point. The Russian military bases are the crypto of financial crime. It becomes invisible for a time because you're just, oh yeah, we have relationships with Russia. That's not about that. It's about bouncing it through there. So it seems like they're packing their shit, which is a huge deal because it leaves a big section of their interests in that area unguarded. Right.
Well, and there's so many other problems with that fleet.
Right.
I would not be terribly surprised if they're condensing it down to their larger vessels. They're going to have to take that all the way around. They're going to have to go through Gibraltar all the way up to get to. I would bet you they take it to their Baltic fleet, because there is still a sliver of the Baltic Sea that isn't owned by the Finns or the Estonians or anybody else that might, seize it, stop it.
Right.
But they could go all the way up to the Arctic as well. But the rest of the fleet, I was having a conversation with a U.S. naval officer, retired commander, recently, and we discussed this. And his assessment was they're going to either have to scrap those or scuttle them. The bulk of because they can't make the journey. They can't make the full journey. And there's nowhere for them to stop because of the sanctions. So I'm betting I would have to defer to the commander who I spoke to or talk to another naval officer. But it's my understanding, that's not a journey everybody's going to make. So they might have loaded everything up on their bigger ships, get it out of there, get it back to Russia, and then get it down to Ukraine to be more grist for the mill. So,
right.
But yeah, that's been disastrous for them. They've absolutely 100% lost, a major asset strategically for them.
Yeah.
In Syria. So
one of the other aspects is that at the beginning of the war, I'm sure you'll recall, and a lot of the viewers, hi, by the way, hit the like, share the show, et cetera, guys. Chris Titus is joining us second hour. Philip Ittner is live in Kyiv, and I want to remind everybody he's got a podcast / video show on YouTube called On the Edge. New episode this Sunday.
Yep.
Yes. Great.
Our first Ukrainian language episode. Oh, wow. Translated into English.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. Mm-hmm. So one of the things in the beginning that everybody was talking about with Russia is that they had built up this wealth fund so that they could, essentially so they could withstand the world's sanctions and carry on the war. And it wasn't going to take that long anyways. And they'd have plenty of money to do it. That was one of the biggest storylines we heard was in the first year was they got plenty of money and they're going to win this in 8 or 10 months max. And they've got money to go for 2 years or something like that. And they didn't, obviously. They did, they started sending more and more troops. They got the North Korean fighters to go in there, and they got on a war footing in terms of their economy. Okay. And because they had no other choice, they couldn't just do it. So they were funneling money into this wealth fund kind of thing. Well, apparently that thing is officially, according to the Russian numbers, bankrupt. The big war fund that they set up is basically empty at this point, and is not. There was a period where it was depleting at if it's depleting by 80%, you're replenishing at 80%, and it's 100%, and it goes down slowly at about a 20% rate. There's like an entropy almost curve that occurs once you reach a certain point where the money filling it in is going out fast, is less than the money going out the door. And so it started to go from we're covering 80% of our losses, now we're covering 60, now we're covering 50, now 40, and they're having to ramp up what they're spending because they're doing favors for China, they're doing favors for North Korea, they're buying stuff directly from Iran instead of making it themselves, and they're reshifting all their factories. So eventually, it's almost like a replay of 91 on a smaller scale. Was this idea that that's what Reagan's plan supposedly was to basically like a fever. See if your body runs a fever to see who it cooks first, you or the disease, right? And so as far as budgetary constraints, Reagan ran a fever in the United States trying to see if we could outrun what the Russians could stand as far as expenditure, and we won because they had no way to replenish it. And same thing is true now. They don't have a way to replenish this.
It's even worse.
Yeah,
it's even worse than that, because they've also, in order to try and cook the books and show that their economy is stronger than it really is, they have been forcing their banks, their private banks, commercial banks, to give preferential loans and basically funneling the money from the bank. And you can do this if you're a dictator. You can force the banks to give these loans to the military, to military contractors to make tanks and munitions and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
But you're pushing your banks to the breaking point, right?
Yeah.
And so what does that mean for your average citizen who has a bank account at Sberbank or Alpha Bank or any of these kind of pseudo state-run, certainly state influence and controlled banks?
Right.
There's I'm hearing it all over the place that there's growing fears within Russia of a run on the banks, because they're being pushed to fund the war, and they can't do it forever.
Right.
And if if banks start collapsing, your entire life savings is gone from one day to the next. And so, they're financially, I think they're in really bad shape. I'm not an economist, but I listen to guys who are, and guys who are, specialists on the Russian market. And the problem with predicting it is that it's being falsely manipulated and propped up. And, it's might be that it comes to an unexpected and we can't forecast it, because it's going to happen when it happens. And when the collapse comes, it's going to be abrupt. It's going to be a shock to the system, and it'll be a sudden kind of situation. And look, it's just, as we've discussed so many times before, Russia's history is this history of redlining stuff and pushing your people, and pushing and just exerting so much pressure on your population that eventually it breaks, and it's a sudden break, and it has tended to be violent. So we shall see. But I don't think all the guys who are convinced that the genius Vladimir Putin and all their various apparatchiks who are running their economy are just geniuses, and they'll survive anything because, of course, Russia is this enormous country. Well, no. There's a damn good chance it's gonna crash and burn at some point. If they keep going the way they are, it's unsustainable.
Yeah,
certainly.
And again, this kind of goes back to that Moscow, inviting Mexico to be part of their currency exchange. Like, it's kind of like a dick move to try and weasel their way into the rift that Trump is doing in his negotiations. And I don't see him. I mean, again, whether he has the power to do it and they have control over him, that's another thing entirely. But we don't know, we can't know. But it certainly doesn't look like something that Trump himself would respond well to because of his petty ego, right? And if you're talking about like the masterful control of this dipshit. One of the things that's why everybody, that's why I don't mind everybody doing on our side of the aisle to some degree who does the Macron handshake, because it works with him, because he's such a jellyhead that he's like, you're my new best friend to anybody who's even remotely nice to him. So, and he's that easily manipulated. you would be remiss, I think, if you have any sense of duty, to, I don't know, give up that tool in your toolbox, that arrow in your quiver, right? Meanwhile, Putin seems to be doing kind of just the opposite. Like he's pushing this to. I don't know that he has a choice. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's like it's beyond. He doesn't have the flexibility to afford. He can't afford to try and manipulate Trump at this point. The situation is too fucking dire. Right?
Yeah, well, and also they're of the mind. They're laughing at us hysterically. You know, they're convinced that we are tearing ourselves apart.
Right.
You know, they're looking at what's happening in Washington, and they're going, "Great, yeah, perfect. That's exactly what we want you to do. Destroy your own government."
Right.
You know, and it's interesting. This is not. It wasn't even a secret that this was kind of the Russian plan. Now, I don't know. Again, I want to tread very carefully here because I don't know how much the Russians are involved in what is happening with the chaos in Washington with everything,
right?
You know, with
Doge
and Musk and all the cast of crazy characters being put in the cabinet.
Yeah, it favors. It seems to. I think it seems to favor China more than it favors Russia right now. So it's hard to tell.
Regardless.
Yeah.
Regardless, though, the Russians are rubbing their hands with glee with this because, again, I mean, like I remember back in the aughts, probably, there were all sorts of Russian think tanks and advisory boards and things they were putting out openly saying, we need to destroy America from within. We can't take them on. We have to destroy them from within and drive them to, you know, to rip themselves apart. And so they're loving watching all of this. And I'm sure they're involved. I don't want to say that they created this, like that Musk or Trump or whomever is an agent. That has become so murky and bizarre. We're not going to know for a long time what the truth is. But having said that, I'm sure they've come on board.
Right.
I'm sure that they are participating. I'm sure that they are sowing seeds of disharmony and chaos. And hey, you know, it'd be a good idea. Let's get, now that you've started with the USAID, let's get rid of the State Department.
Right.
Why don't we just get rid of the State Department? I mean, or something, you know. I mean, that's not going to happen.
That they will float all those. Yeah. And
they'll get in there, and they will push on all the buttons, and they'll pull all the levers that they know perfectly well how to do and where to do because they study us more than any place on the planet. They study the United States.
One great example, of the shit stirring aspect of this that I think is kind of crucial is that, like, the last couple of days in Los Angeles and I think in Seattle, a couple other places, San Francisco too, there have been these gatherings to push back against Trump's immigration raids, where people are out on the street. Okay, and I have no doubt that a portion of those are completely organic. But the amount of Mexican flags that are being flown during that thing, I would argue, is counterproductive to the message that you are trying to make. The smart move would be to immigrants make this country and wave American flags to make the point that you are here, you contribute, you are part of this, whatever. But if you want to play into Trump's whole idea of it's an invasion, then fly the flag of another country on the streets of that country. Like, that's how it's going to be received. It's so dumb, it seems intentional. It seems, you know what I mean? And we know that during the BLM stuff and over a myriad of things, the anti-Israel protests on college campuses, that the Russians absolutely had a hand in not only helping to organize those things through fake Facebook pages and, you know, getting people riled up or whatever, but also funneling money directly to small groups that would act as sort of agent provocateurs.
Yeah.
in these
Oh, and
situations.
if you don't think Moscow has been sending money to far right militias
Yeah,
all throughout the country, you're being willfully naive.
yeah,
It absolutely. I mean, again, so much of what On the Edge has been about. There have been so many episodes where we have talked about what it is that they do. Their modus operandi when they start to interfere with another country for their own interests.
yeah,
We've documented it on the show time and time and time again. We just did it on Africa. We've done it in the Baltics. We've done it in Georgia and the Caucasus. We've talked about it in Europe. Um, so what you think that they're not doing it in America?
right,
That they've chosen their
right.
biggest enemy, that self-professed enemy, that they're
Yeah,
going to do it in
that
Africa
like
and
they
the
have a
Caucasus and the
gentleman's
Baltics?
agreement to not do it here.
Yeah, but they're just going to not do it in the U.S. No, man, they're all over the. I mean, look at Tenet Media. Look at. I mean, it's just again. I am not going to say that they created where we are.
Right.
We have agency. We're big boys. We're
Yeah.
responsible for our own nation, but they use our weaknesses and our divisions and the cracks between us to the best advantage they possibly
Right.
can to divide and conquer. It's always been divide and conquer. And I don't see fingerprints, but I smell a hell of a lot of sulfur.
Yeah.
The devil is about, and I smell the sulfur. I haven't seen the pentagram yet, but I know the devil is there, and he's trancing around in DC, and his name's Vladimir Putin.
Right.
So, we again, this is. I'm not saying anything I haven't said a million times before, but the sooner America wakes up to the fact that the Russians consider themselves to be at war with us, the better, because they're acting accordingly, and we got to start defending ourselves better.
Well, you know
And
how like Trump
yeah.
is always chasing whatever bone was thrown in front of him right before he walks on stage, and he has this habit of doing it. How long before if he's able to grasp that and becomes offended by it, or feels like he's finally got power over the people that he had power over him? Like, look at his kind of retribution idea. But if he feels relatively untouchable, especially in his second term, you kind of can't blackmail him. One of the upsides that I saw in his stupid meme coin shit, because it was harmless graft, meaning that only maggots bought it, and I give a fuck what they do with their money. If they want to throw it in a shredder or set fire to it like the Joker, I don't care. The fact that it goes into his pocket is dumb, yes. Is gross, of course. But ultimately, he's now not, as far as I can see, as far as like the debts he had coming due, can be paid with that money. So he doesn't owe, the way Russia really had pressure over him because banks wouldn't loan to him. He didn't actually have the money. He was pretending to be rich. And now he doesn't have that worry anymore. So if they don't have that leverage, does he start getting mad that they were blackmailing him and mad that they were having control of him, or even at the perception? Because again, he's a dough-headed son of a bitch, and everybody around him, it's whoever whispered in his ear last. And if he's not if Zelensky speaks a little nicer to him than Russia does in his mind, that's that. It's super. I mean, I wish it was less transactional. I wish it was more well thought out. But ultimately, it may end up benefiting the United States that this man's an allegedly enormous ego is as weak as it actually is.
Yeah, and again, it's transactional. If he can say
right.
that we got access to all these minerals, rare earth, whatever, the metals,
Yeah.
then he gets to tout that. Hell, if he's able, how about this? I've heard this floated.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much credence I put to it, but it wouldn't shock me, is that if he's able to resolve this war, there's a very good chance he gets a Nobel Peace Prize.
Right.
I mean,
right.
like literally,
Yep.
because this is a really, really nasty, dangerous war,
Mm-hmm.
and could lead to a lot more suffering and war. And is
And the
under
irony
Trump's
is he
administration.
probably prizes
And
having a
he's
Nobel Prize more than he does the rare earth minerals for the nation. Like that's more
well,
important to
who
him.
else got who else got a
Obama.
Nobel?
Yeah. Yeah. Obama.
So I've heard that floated. Again, people say a lot of stuff, but I mean, hell, I don't care. Give him 10 Nobel Prizes. I don't care if it ends this war. I don't give a
Right.
shit.
Yeah.
But that could also be a motivating factor as well. I mean, there's so
Well,
much.
again, it all boils down to like the weakness of his ego, and how easy it is to manipulate it. And the pressure campaign for the longest time, it seems, and again, we only know what we know and what we have access to knowing, is that Russia's pressure on him was direct. It seems to have been like the way he walked out of those meetings with Putin, looking like he just had a colonoscopy with a chainmail glove. That's not where you come out going, this guy just told me I'm the most awesome. When he would say things, he was very forceful in saying that he didn't do this, that Russia didn't do this. And there's a shot of Trump like pushing Bibi Netanyahu's chair in at the little signing thing that they did or whatever. That again, this is a guy who feels like, even though he's president, that he lost. He feels like a loser no matter what he does. And if anybody makes him feel even temporarily not like a loser, they're his best friend in the world.
Yeah.
Right.
And
so
and a peace and a Nobel would be
oh yeah. They start talking to him about, man, you end this war and Russia can't invade Ukraine anymore in a way that the Ukrainians are happy with. And oh yeah, the rest of the world's going to reward you. If Russia comes away on the upside on this, you're not going to get a Nobel Prize. You're just going to look like a sellout. But if Ukraine does okay and there's a sense of like stability and stuff, then you got a real shot at one, boss, right? That kind of language has an effect on this dipshit. Sure. And again, do I wish he didn't? Sure. Yeah.
Look, he's petty enough to draw up his own, Time, front page.
Yes. Time covers.
Edition. If he's petty enough to do that, think about the Nobel Committee actually giving him the Nobel Peace Prize.
Right.
Yeah. He's small enough to go for it. So, and also, fine. If he's able to bring peace to this, then acceptable peace to this, then, okay. Maybe it's deserved that he would get a Nobel Prize.
It's almost like a game of warm or colder with this asshole, because it's almost like if you could just have a bunch of people standing around Trump, that as he did the right thing, you just started, hey, like that, and then as he moves away, the clapping gets very golf-like. He would go, oh, they like this, like that's. He's in such desperate need of attention and approval. That's one of the ways you can manipulate him. And it's why he's paranoid about some of the very people that are around him. It's why, in some instances, like with Elon Musk, his ego is vested in it, that he has to look, if he looks like he was taken or he's not in control, then, Musk is his fault. And currently we're in that bubble. And Musk is taking advantage of that fact, that if everybody's pointing out like, this motherfucker's a crook, you let him in there. But if Trump gets a little distance from it, like he did some good things and now I don't like him anymore, that window will allow him to, to escape with, as little culpability as he likes to have, right? But right now it's too soon.
But at the same, but what does bother me, and we haven't really talked about it, so I'm going to try and squeeze it in here quickly before Titus comes on, is that, the USAID thing, and Musk's, influence on doing that, and all that kind of stuff. Look, I have seen USAID do really good things. Okay, sure. I've been covering international news for 30 plus years. I have seen incompetence. I have seen mismanagement. I have seen waste. I have seen setting out an agenda that was ridiculous and not very well thought out. Sure. All of those things are true about USAID. I would argue all of those kind of things are true of pretty much any large organization
Right.
that tackles some very, very difficult issues.
Yeah.
But you know what else I've seen? I've seen USAID putting out tents for flood victims, or providing hot meals for people who have been internally displaced or who are refugees. And I've also seen them supporting journalists and civil society and all the good things that we in America believe makes a stronger country and a stronger, friendlier, allied country. It's in our interest. They are turning what they want to do is from my perception, they want to turn our soft power into a much more transactional kind of thing, like we see with China and Russia's soft power, where it's not about spreading, the American project and the American Revolution and the idea of liberal democracy throughout the world, with the ideal that it makes the world better and safer in ways we don't even know. But we're just going to be another global power with soft power that's really only aimed at, furthering our interests. And I know I can hear the cries coming across the internet all over the place. Well, we do that. That's what we do. Maybe, but we bring with it. I've seen it. I've seen election advisors that are trained at USAID. I've seen, classes for teaching politicians how to, conduct themselves fairly.
By the way, Jen, thank you for the memberships. That was really awesome. So technically speaking, just so you know, right now, USAID cannot be dissolved by an act of fiat by the president or by Elon Musk and his group. What they've done is they have taken the leadership out and they have put it under the State Department, which has been a gripe point for senators for a long time. So because USAID has been opaque in their budgetary function and all that kind of stuff. And that's been a bitching point for the right for a long time, largely because in an attempt to just keep long-term plans that take more than a couple of election cycles to actually implement, they don't want a bunch of, randos who get elected with a wild hair up their ass for the first 6 months of their term crawling up USAID's ass because you've got a bunch of isolationists or a bunch of Ron Paul wannabes trying to shut down American influence in the world. So they kind of ignore them, punt it as long as possible. But it's been a long-running thing. So the USAID thing is about as much Musk's idea or Trump's idea as the Trump tax cut was. Trump's tax cut was written by Mitch McConnell and the Heritage Foundation and sat in Mitch McConnell's desk, but for a couple of notes, like changing the dates for years until they would get him to pass it. And the USAID thing, has been a stick in their craw, and they've been trying to move it from an independent agency to under the State Department. And again, they cannot shut it down like they said. They tried, but they're running up against the fact that it still exists. They can, they're going to shuffle the funding. They're going to do a semi-permanent pause on it or whatever. But again, they have to rely on the House and the Senate giving up power to make this work. That's the one thing that I think is the outlier in this circumstance, is that the House and the Senate have to go, okay, we don't control the purse strings anymore. We don't create departments, agencies. We don't pay for them, and we don't do oversight on them. You take care of that. You and Elon Musk take our fucking job. That's what this requires. And I don't see especially the power hungry Republicans allowing that to happen. Anybody who thinks they have a future after this dickhead is gone. I think they think he's doing a big brooming for them, and then they're going to try and right the ship after the fact.
What troubles me about Musk in particular, though, and there's a whole bunch of them that are being brought into power in this administration, is that I genuinely do think that Musk is a fellow traveler with Russia. I think he does.
I agree.
Genuinely believe that USAID is there to foment revolutions in autocratic systems, and how dare we do that? How dare we support civil liberties and civil society and journalism and properly trained politicians and legal systems and the rule of law. How dare we support these things because they threaten autocracies? So autocracies as being a front for this kind of American imperialism. Well,
Right.
it's imperialism in the sense that, yes, we do believe in these values, and we find folks in countries that share those values, and autocrats don't like it. And I think Musk actually is on board with this perception that all power, soft or military, should be used solely for American kind of power dynamics. I don't know if he's an imperialist as such, but I think he does believe that all of these things should be used in power plays on the global stage. And that's not really what USAID is all about. I mean, there's an underlying current of we want you to be our friends, so we're going to be nice to you, sort of thing. But there's also the fact that, we are helping. The USAID does amazing work around the globe, and it really should be supported. So I know that it can't be done by fiat of the president, but if you got a moment or two today, give a call to your representative and tell them you support USAID, because it would be a real blow to our position on the world stage.
We're seeing that
if they hobbled it.
Right. I have we'll see. Like I have a wait and see attitude with this, because part of it is we knew he was going to do this kind of like move fast, break things bullshit that he got from Silicon Valley via Musk. We knew that they were going to like be a bull in a china shop. The issue is whether the ramifications of what he's doing land on the sort of Republican representatives fast enough for them to go, whoa. Right? Whether there's there's an audio issue. I've got audio going out on my end, so it might be a YouTube thing. It might just be that I'm being attacked. Just refresh. That would be a good idea. Anyways, so I feel like there's a bit of a wait and see in people that there has to be a FAFO reaction, because we're not going to convince these guys otherwise. They're so hell bent on this. Now, one of the worst parts of the sort of FAFO reaction that we're seeing is the Gaza announcement that he made, which is fucking bananas, right? But I told you so. Sorry. I'm looking for Titus. Does he have the right link? Is he on the mornings one? Hold on. Make sure he has the right one. I don't see him in there, but make sure he has the right one. Like that announcement is fucking insane. But at the same time, like, Republicans, they're going to see more, like, that's a long-term blowback thing. Like, if Trump actually tries to carry that shit out, there's just no fucking way we don't lose troops doing that shit. Like, it's just not possible. Just, you know what I mean? It's
make the Beirut Marine barracks attack look like,
right. And it's going to trigger even the threat. He's going to trigger, other stuff before it even happens, because again, it could very well shut down the hostage trade right now. Like because they're like, oh, okay, you're just waiting until this is done, then you're going to broom us the fuck out. That's basically what he said. Like, what difference does it fucking make if we get our people out of there? If you're not going to send them home, you're going to send them here and then kill them? Is that what's going to happen? It's nuts. So I don't see how. I mean, the people around him, like, there's an article that Susie Wiles, the Trump whisperer during the campaign, and who kept all the cuckoos at bay, and is why Mike Flynn doesn't have a closer spot and all that kind of shit right now, was shooting daggers at him while he was saying this shit in the Oval Office, when he started floating this nonsense before he had the talk with Netanyahu, before he said it. And she was like, what the fuck? Yeah. And you could see it everywhere. So people around him are like, I don't know that anybody can Speak to him. There he is in the back. There's
Oh my
Titus showing up.
God.
Here he is. Be
Hey,
with us just a
What's
second.
up, people?
What's happening?
hello
Phil
from
Bittner.
Kiev.
Yep. And there's Titus. I'll bring you in just 1 second. Let me finish on this thought. I want to remind everybody.
Greetings from Kiev, Titus.
Go. Sorry I'm late.
Oh, fear not. So, anyways, Phil Bittner, On the Edge, Sunday show. Your first one in Ukrainian, in the actual language.
First Ukrainian language. We're going to talk to a guy who he's basically a Ukrainian monuments man.
Mhm.
He goes into the front line of places where the Russians are advancing, and he gets lists of art and cultural heritage items, and he goes
Bugs
in
them
while
out.
artillery shells are falling, and he seizes and he secures Ukrainian art and culture. It's a good one. It's a good one. We're still kind
Excellent.
of working out the Ukrainian language translation and using AI to do it, but
Yeah.
we'll get there. And I
Hey,
think
man,
it's a
these are
episode
tools that
worthwhile.
did not exist at all. So thanks, Philip.
That's
I will
right.
see you on Saturday. Yes.
All right, man.
The radio show. Be safe, and we will see you
See you on
soon.
Saturday.
All right.
Thanks
Excellent.
very much. All right.
Okay.
Yep.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Let him bump out of there, and then we'll pop over to here, and then I'll let him go, and then we'll go hang up this one, and then go okay, and then I'll pump this in here, and we'll have our dear friend Christopher Titus joining us right now. There he is. Hey, look at that. What's happening, man? Hi.
I'm honestly a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? I've been living this clusterfuck since this guy took over, and I think now I'm a little more optimistic by watching how he's failed at everything he's tried so far.
Yeah. Well,
And the ideas are so insane that you're like the new one about Gaza. It makes me, I burst out laughing because
Right.
it's always worked out when we've gotten involved in the Middle East. It's always just smoothed everything out.
Right. No. So what? So much for starting new wars. No starting new wars. Getting us out of forever wars. If there was ever the definition of a forever war, it would be the war between Jews and Muslims in the Middle East.
The 1200 years before Christ. Yeah, let's get involved in that because
Right.
everyone else has tried everything. Let's get the dumbest guy we've ever had. Let's give him a shot.
Do you have your like? There's obviously there are limits because there are real people really affected by this, and that always rides in the back of my head. But does part of you also, when he starts saying this shit, because you know it will be up to the Republicans to stop him, go, keep talking, dummy, go, yeah. Let me. Oh, it's a great idea. Keep coming, just so that he just gets nuttier and nuttier, so people see it sooner, I guess.
Well, there was a good point made, and I think that what he's doing is, I think it's a heist. I think this is all to distract us. I think we have in Musk where he is. I think this is a heist. It feels like every shitty B movie where it's like they're doing the heist, and then someone blows up a car, and everyone rushes to the blown up car. And I think, and the news is buying it, and I'm watching it going. He got shut down on birthright citizenship countrywide today. He got, it's just one thing after the other. And I realized, oh, right, this guy couldn't sell water, steak, and vodka. That's alcohol. Do we think he's going to fix this?
Right.
No fucking way. So I think there's going to be damage done. That we've got a South African immigrant, a psychopath involved in our system.
Who's still pissed about apartheid?
Yeah, he's still angry about apartheid, and obviously World War II, as we saw. Right. Jesus Christ.
There's some sort of relation between the ideology of both of those things, and I want to come up with what it is.
But I had this. I've been really angry, and then I had this moment today. I think the Middle East thing is what put me over the top because if you know history at all, if you have an inkling of it, which he doesn't, you know that this is doomed to any kind of failure. And to send American troops, it's just not going to happen. I don't think there's anybody in our Congress. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene.
He broke it all down yesterday. He was like, well, let's send troops in to broom them out. They'll be moved to someplace beautiful. Like he's going to build them fucking suburbs around 6, 5, 7, 9, 12 different. But like that part was like him going through acting like he has options, which I think was what that was meant to be, other than he's been talking about a bunch of cities where he could do development work with the Kushners. around Dubai and other places, move these people down, basically make them slave labor for different Arab economies throughout the Middle East. That's kind of what he's talking about, it seems like. But
That's what Gaza needs. Gaza needs a resort with an omelet bar and bed bugs. That's what Gaza needs. So
golf,
I don't know, man.
For Gaza, right?
I'm just but let me ask you about this, because you have always so much more insight than I do. Does this feel like the barrage of the first 2 weeks seems like what Bannon always told them to do, which is just throw everything at the wall, and then having putting Musk, Musk is leading the heist, obviously, because
right.
But what do you think? I mean, I went through everything he's done in the first 2 weeks, and none of it's legal, none of it's anything the American public wants. Everything's against what he said, from prices going up to everything. So like, he's failed. Like, I've never seen 100% failure rate, and that's where he's at right now. So what do you see is coming though? Because there's going to be a day he gets frustrated, angry, and does something crazy. Not that everything he has knows crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of wag the dog possible, unfortunately, in a bunch of these areas. Not just, I think the biggest. I have my fallbacks to the most dangerous, to the secondary dangers, and Gaza is the second most dangerous part of it. The first one is this weird ratcheting, and I don't know if you've seen it in right-wing media, about the cartels are really a government, and their foot soldiers are really soldiers. So you could declare war on the cartels like you could on ISIS. What's the fucking difference? And so we can bomb Mexico. That talk has been growing, and they have. Who was it? Rubio repeated that point, that they are de facto governments, after meeting with all these Latin American folks and after going to El Salvador, where El Salvador handled their gang problem through this enormous CCOT military thing. I don't know if you've seen it. It's where they're all the guys have to wear just underwear, and they all have face tattoos, and they've shaved everybody, and they all live in bunk beds till they die. Forever in this giant facility, and there's no like cell service for 2.5 miles outside the fucking place, so they can't call in murders and shit like that. Is the most secure place next to Gitmo, I think, in the world. And It's almost like Rubio went down there. Bukele said, "We'll take some of your bad prisoners. If you want to put them here, you can pay us to house them here." And what he meant was some of the Guantanamo-esque people that are going to end up in South America later, that may or may not be citizens. But there may be citizens. Like, there's no precedent for that. That's fucking crazy. But when Rubio said it, that's when the hair on the back of my neck stood up. Because, these fucking, like, military-esque, like Delta Force would go in there and kick their ass, kind of Trump's talk about the fucking ICE guys throwing fisticuffs in the nest of vipers. Remember that shit? Like, that I don't care about. But once they start defining it by with policy, when Marco Rubio said they act as de facto governments, that's enough. That's your authorized use of military force. This is a terrorist organization. The cartels are terrorist organizations that operate by paying their way. We did this, arguably, the Taliban, some of Al-Qaeda and the like. They pay for their way with drugs, but their real business is death, right? That's been true for a long time.
Well, so I mean, weirdly enough, the Taliban would be a good example to point to. However, I don't think Trump's followers and his base is going to understand what de facto means, and I think we're safe. I think we're kind of safe there. That being said, though, man, I didn't even think about it till you brought up the Taliban. But how dumb, between Canada and Mexico and Panama and Greenland.
That's the distraction part. That's where I think you're right. I think it's just fucking like a bunch of, Canada's not going to be the 51st state. These fucking tariffs aren't going to stick. If USMCA was worth a motherfucking dime, you wouldn't even be arguing this. All this says is USMCA sucked, right?
Yeah, exactly, which is what he did. But here's the problem with it is that I just saw what I see today that just freaked me out. I was getting ready for the show and I was reading something. Oh, he wants to do a checkable, approvable nuclear freeze deal with Iran.
Right.
We had that. Right. You killed it, you dick. What are you talking about? We had that. You walked in and killed it.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
And why would they enter into a new one if you just stated the point that the next guy can just chuck it out? So the rule, and this is the issue, The only way we have a deal like that is if Congress passes it. Because a president can enter into a treaty with another country or a mix of tariffs and treaties on his own. But the next president can nullify it if it hasn't been ratified by Congress and made whole. Right. So the Iranian deal didn't have time to do that under Obama. So he came in as Republican, just scratched it like it was an executive order. It didn't mean anything. But the rest of the world doesn't know that distinction. It doesn't care about that distinction. A treaty is a treaty is a treaty. You should be able to count on it. You live up to your side as long as I live up to my side. But because Trump was like, I don't like anything with Obama's name on it, scritch, he just got rid of it. The weird part is that Republicans might be willing to pass the very same fucking deal that Obama passed, right? Just as long as it's got Trump's name on it. And Democrats will go, yeah, that's the deal we had in the first place. Of course I'll vote for it.
But that's every deal we had. I mean, we already had Mexico had already given us 10,000 troops on the border. We had already had these 15 deals with Canada. Like everything. They took away 5. His new deal took away 5. People don't get is that he actually shit the bed so hard this last week. All this tariff talk, the market was out of control. You could see the market was going to go down. Everything was worldwide, and then he gets his ass handed to him, and he plays it like a victory. But here's my biggest problem with all of it. This is not just a short-term thing where we got the crazy guy. The world knows he's crazy. There is no, well, let's see what he does, because we know what he's going to do.
Right.
We are going to lose for a decade if we get this guy out. A decade of our reputation worldwide. And what you just said is so important. There's not a tariff or a treaty that anybody can believe, because this guy's treating it like he's buying curtains for his hotels in New Jersey. And he's just going to screw the guy over. And this is the world, man. You're fucking with the most powerful country in the world and destroying our reputation worldwide. And here's my question. What can
is that a feature or a bug?
Well, I have a question too. All the courts are shutting him down on all the stuff he wants to do. My question is, and it seems like they don't care. His whole crew doesn't care if it's illegal or not. What I don't get, and I'm watching the Democrats. Let's get to the Democrats now. I'm watching the Democrats literally do nothing. You have putting a microphone outside a building where Elon Musk is raping the federal treasury is not really doing anything. So I always go to you for help. Tell me what is possible to do here.
Well, okay. The primary thing is that Democrats, because they are out of power in the House and the Senate, have no control over these elements unless they, through the regular order of business, can, through Mike Johnson, bring to the floor, some sort of, articles that would bring Elon Musk before the Congress and have him testify under oath and then offer charges, and the DOJ follows through with it. We don't have control of any of that shit. The only actual and so to even blame Democrats for not doing more than that is it's asking the impossible. It's what I call the stroke of the pen fallacy. What if they just did this? This would happen. None of that is true. There's nothing within their power, because that power has been taken away. They have the House, they have the Senate, they have the presidency, but they have it such a narrow zone, which is why the Senate is trying to get the budget through in 2 chunks. And use reconciliation, because they don't trust the House to be able to pass one big bill, because they're a bunch of fucking lunatics, and they will have to give too much to the Democrats to get it through, because they can never get enough votes from anybody in a big bill that that important. So the only area that Democrats have leverage on at all is a budgetary vote. They're in the situation where they can either shut down the government or insist on stuff so that it doesn't. Now, the Republicans know the Democrats care more about the function of government than they do. So if it gets shut down, they kind of don't give a fuck. They enjoy the damage. But it's not on Democrats' shoulders at all. All they can do is draw attention and try to build up the bully pulpit and get people to show up outside. And there was a rally outside the Treasury. There was there were people. That's kind of all they can do right now. So again, go ahead.
I get it. So basically, we're screwed. Thanks, man. I did not need to hear that, but I appreciate it. I know, but so
within limits, like I said, when it comes to the budget, which is important, and his tax cut.
No one's going to arrest Elon Musk. No one's going to do it. We're screwed. No. So I get it. So here's my thing. I've never been more clear than that of the Tree of Liberty quote than I am right now. It feels like we don't have a cop that's going to come in and someone's going to go, you just can't do this, because we know he can't do that, and he's doing it anyway because no one's going to stop him. It's really what Hitler did. If you look back what Hitler did when he got into power, he just grabbed every agency, raped it, and then he ran them all. And that's what's happening now, except Hitler, it was literate. And that's where we're totally fucked.
Right.
Because Hitler,
Hitler
that's
could write the silver lining. That's the silver lining. Because again, Hitler and his generals were in sync in strategically what they wanted to do.
Right.
And Trump is incapable of being in sync with anybody, even himself. And so what all Democrats can do really is look for holes in the process, in what he's doing. And again, they're doing it in the courts. At some point, it will matter, because is he immune to it? Can he be arrested? No. But can Musk? Absolutely. If Musk was not given proper, if he was not vetted according to law to look at this stuff, or he took information from there, Trump can't give him permission unless he does it on paper. He can't declassify the entire fucking treasury, that kind of stuff, by farting on it. That ship has sailed. But Trump it won't worry about, and maybe it's like, oh, he'll just pardon Musk. Okay, good luck with that. But at the very least, remember the HIPAA shit about vaccines that the right was freaking out about? That you don't have the right to ask me. HIPAA rules protect me. You don't have the right to know if I'm vaccinated or not. HIPAA is going to save me from a vaccine passport, right? That was their belief system. There is a nerve to be played with that crowd that Elon Musk, the electric car guy who wants to replace you with a robot, now has your Social Security shit. That's how you talk about it. The only way this is going to turn is if the Bannon world suspicion about Elon Musk grows to a groundswell. And because Musk is off the leash, there's a very strong chance that'll happen. The question is, what damage is done by the time it comes around, right?
Well,
and there is
And the problem is that Trump gives a shit about one thing: money. And Elon Musk, he wants to be Elon Musk. He wants to have $400 billion.
Yes.
And it's weird, because when Bannon started speaking, I thought, okay, this is going to cause some serious friction. And you can just see Trump going, he's got more money than you, Steve, shut up.
Right.
And so when you've got a guy that doesn't have any compass, I mean, intellectual, moral,
right.
He wants to date his daughter. When you got a guy that has no moral compass, I keep telling people when they say, well, what can he do? I go, do you remember what happened last time? None of us could have imagined how stupid and insane this guy is.
Right.
Now he's confident in the job. Now he's confident. Do you got to remember, this man beat the system 1,000 different ways. He beat it for stealing government documents, top secret documents. Then the Saudis came to his house with the finance minister. Why was it at the golf tournament? Like he had him storing him in his bathroom. He committed treason, and he got raped, and he got away with all of it. And people keep saying to me, like, what can happen? I'm like, you guys, do you remember last time?
Right. Well, two things. I agree. Sorry, finish your thought, and then I'll.
I just don't know. I always come again. The only reason I agree to do your show is so I can get calm.
Right. Well, here's the thing. This will calm you a little bit. One is that until the fever breaks around MAGA and Trump, we're in this cycle. Whatever this fucking psyop situation that the Russians kicked along, by helping create The Apprentice, that made Mark Burnett the envoy to the place where Russians have the most secondary property outside of Cyprus. Until that fever breaks amongst the MAGA faithful, or at least the run-of-the-mill Republicans, or the crossover uncommitted assholes who now should be, waking up every day and slamming their head into a fucking desk. Until that happens, we're on a trajectory. It's not moving as fast as people think it is. I think a lot of hair on fire is happening for good reason, because we know the ramifications. They're not thinking that far ahead. Maybe Musk is, but Trump certainly isn't, and his people, they think it'll be fine. We'll just put good people in who love America, and that's how he's genuinely thinking. Because here's the silver lining. The Trump of 2025 is not the Trump of 2016 on a lot of fronts, mentally, emotionally, age-wise. Like, he's really on a hard fade. It's bad. Everything they said about Biden is true about Trump in spades. And he eats shit, doesn't exercise, doesn't sleep, does all kinds of shit.
Dead.
And I don't think he makes it the whole term. I also don't think that J.D. Vance has the charisma to drive MAGA afterwards. And his relationship with Peter Thiel and some of these other folks makes MAGA more nervous than Trump. They didn't like it when he was added to the ticket. They held their nose and were okay with it, but they weren't fans. Trump just did it because he was in Hillbilly Elegy. It was that simple. And he's
I agree with you on this.
He was like a Dan Quayle. But if Trump goes, there's
I told
no
my wife,
cracking.
I didn't think he was going to make it to the election. I really didn't think he was going to make it to the election, but I'm wrong. The guy
spent 6 days in the hospital after the election. He was in the hospital. Yeah, he was in the hospital for 6 days. That's why you didn't see him. He had two phone-ins, and he was gone for like 3.5 days completely. So he effectively had a physical collapse. Like, dude, they're going to be, if he isn't dead by the midterms, they're going to be rolling him around in a chair like Admiral Pike. Just, you know, like, one beep means make America great again. 2 beeps means Diet Coke, right? That's
maybe Elon will give him a Neuralink so we can actually just Wi-Fi his ass. So basically, Elon Musk will Wi-Fi the presidency through Neuralink in Trump's head.
Oh, I believe me. If they thought they could pull it off, and they seem to think go big or go home, what's harder, putting a chip in Trump's head and nobody noticing, or going to Mars? Like, for fuck's sake.
You definitely notice it, because all of a sudden he'd start making sense. There was a chip that was operating. Wait a minute. That made what the hell's going on? Something's really wrong.
Right.
He didn't say something
That's
crazy.
not even Grok. That's ChatGPT. So here's what there are 2 other aspects of this that I think they haven't factored in. And, you know, Musk and his guys are dangerous. That is a real thing. And there are only limited things you can do about that. And apparently Trump said yesterday they're operating out of the Oval Office. They are operating out of, and what he meant was the White House, that those 6 Doge dickheads that Musk hired and brought in there, who are all like, you know, 26 and younger or whatever, all incels, all, you know, like, are, you know, have like no fap November and watch a lot of Rogan or whatever, are all.
I wouldn't let him detail my car. I wouldn't. I saw the pictures and I'm like, dude, I wouldn't let you near my vehicle because you would mess it up. Yeah.
So these are, and again, they're going to be singular of focus, and it's this whole concept of anti-woke stuff or whatever. Like, that's their big thing. Like, they think they're going to go in there and broom all the quote unquote woke out of the USAID payments and the Department of Education and yada yada. What happens is the only thing he can dismantle is the administrative state. Really. Right. FBI is the way they administer justice via the it's created by the Congress, so it has to exist. It has to meet certain standards. The money that's allocated to it has to be spent doing what it's supposed to do. So if you cut all the workforce, that money won't be deallocated. They'll insist on, a performance review, right?
That's the heist, right? That's my question. Is that
the heist? No, I think the heist is PayPal-like software running the Treasury. I think the goal of all this stuff is Musk and Peter Thiel, who are behind PayPal, being the guys who create a cryptocurrency that the U.S. uses, or a stash of them, so they guarantee they just mine it and sell it to the U.S. government. They have an automatic buyer that won't fluctuate, and that they are responsible for the software that Treasury payments get done. So they do kind of like it's like everything's a reboot with these motherfuckers. It's Richard Pryor in Superman 4. They think they're gonna shave nickels off of every dollar, and nobody will know eventually. That's what I think. That's why the Treasury. That's why these guys get in there. And the ability to like broom out the level of malware they could possibly be putting in there right now is beyond the current state of the government, without help from. And this may be a war between Sam Altman and Musk, and Bezos and Musk, and where this is. I feel like in some of these, I feel like when like the citizens watching Godzilla fight Mecha Godzilla, like you're kind of rooting for the organic one, but you're still going to get stepped on if either of these motherfuckers, comes your way. And
So
that's
so you're basically saying that this just comes down to small-dicked, fragile white men who have way too much money, is what you're saying. And here's the weird thing: if you look
not just white men, Indian men. There's a couple of those guys in there,
true,
and there's
true. A lot of bro. Yeah.
And there's some guys, I suppose, whose cocks are of reasonable size, but still feel inadequate because it won't inflate.
No, because every dude with a reasonable sized cock doesn't do this stuff, has a moral compass, because they don't need to worry about who's looking at me. Am I failing? You know, it's weird.
Right.
So if you even look at the history of it, like, so Hitler had Henry Ford, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Trump has Musk. Like, did they just only write 80 years of the Matrix and just say, fuck it, now we're back in the loop?
It's a
again?
loop, right? Yeah.
They couldn't code it out for a couple of centuries, just 80 years.
You have that. Everybody always says, if those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. My feeling is
My
that
new show, by the way.
Oh, right. Oh, there you go. I live under the belief that it isn't that we're doomed to repeat history. It's that we're not actually out of it yet. We seem to come to these places where we think we're out. We think we're out of that cycle. We think, like in the 90s when Russia fell, everybody bought it. Like, oh, fuck. Cold War's over. That shit's gone. We're not doing that shit anymore. When the Russians, it turns out it was a rope-a-dope. It was all bullshit. And they were just, They knew they couldn't win overtly, so they decided to win covertly. And they just did a fallback position, and they played on our empathy, and they weaponized it. And we were like, we'll help you stabilize your economy and become a real country and sell shit, right? We didn't leave that cycle.
Listen, are you that cynical? Because I do believe that human nature, we all want it right. We all, like, but these evolution emergency brakes, and they all seem to be really rich, that just keep yanking human progress to a screeching halt. The rest of us just want to get on with it. And there's a bunch of people.
I think that's true. I think that's true. Yeah. But I think even in the Russian situation, like, we're talking about the leadership and their decision about how shit should be run. Because we know the leadership of a country is often divorced from the feelings of the people anyways. And a lot of people, especially in a situation like Russia or Iran, things like that, you just keep your head down and just try to have what semblance of a normal life you fucking can in the face of it, right?
Right.
So I do think most people want to live like that. The question is, how do you adapt to that in the circumstance you're in? If you have an authoritarian government, you just push your fucking fruit cart and try not to say anything that the boss won't like, right? But you still, you just want that slice of freedom that you have so bad that you'll put up with, a certain amount of that heavy weight on you. The question is, when does that get too heavy and you push back?
Yeah, but throughout history, there's a breaking point. And I'll tell you that I've now done 10 comedy specials, had my own TV show. I've done a lot in this life, and I'm an older man now. And I'll be honest with you, my family found out, my new show is called Doomed to Repeat. And it's literally about the history of America. My family was here in 1635. They came over on the Hopewell. And we don't own shit, chat. We don't own anything. We did nothing. We were like, I have some beer and the native people are sexy. That's the Tituses. But we were part of America for the last 400 years. And I'm to the point now where, and here's my theory. When you bring in these other countries like Russia, whatever, they've had a history of oppression. They've really had a history of constant oppression. So it's in their, collective DNA to go back to it. On the other hand, in this country, we've never had it. We've had, the covert oppression, obviously, and I would argue with some Japanese people in World War II that, yes, you've had some oppression. But we have been taught, it's in our DNA, freedom, this is our country, you don't screw with us. I would be very surprised if the American public suffers through that and accepts it and keeps pushing their little cart, their fruit cart. I don't think that's going to happen.
I agree.
And honestly, I'll be in the front. I'll take the first shot because I'm done with this shit. I'm really done with the dumb people electing a dumber person and then trying to justify all the stupid shit he's doing. And that's where we are. And I'm fine with the Department of Education leaving because he got elected. We're obviously not using it. So, man.
Okay.
It's just,
so yeah, I hear you. It's interesting that you bring up the fact that Americans have never really experienced that kind of overt oppression before. But because if you ask the average maggot, they are convinced they absolutely have, that they have been put upon more than any other human. They are slaves, victims of apartheid. They are, they are shackled online by free speech overlords, right? That shit, it's kind of amazing. So the trick is that you're only as free as you think you are. And,
Right.
and there was that, I always think about the Japanese soldier who didn't know the war had ended. Remember that story where the dude was like in the woods for 25, 30 years or whatever. And he just thought, he just held his position, right? And for 30 fucking years, right? And ultimately, like, CSI, you know what we mean.
Isn't it funny though that these white people, these white men are so angry that they've run shit for 400 years in this country? How are you this angry that you've been in charge for this long? Like, and I know that it's that old thing, being equals feels like losing. But the entire country, and I've said this in my new show, we were designed as that. We were designed to be equal. Now DEI is basically just all men are created equal, and you guys are pissed about that? How can you just stand against this entire fucking country and what it believes in and continue to call yourself a patriot? I don't get it.
I speak moron, so I feel okay like in half these situations. Having grown up in Kentucky, I really do feel like I have the ear of a maggot sometimes. I can hear what they're hearing, even though I disagree. I'm like, oh, okay, what we're saying, they don't hear, it's all Greek to me, is a statement for a reason. And there's just shit they're incapable of hearing. And when we hear DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, we're already doing it. Democrats, people on our side of the aisle, we don't even need to be told it. We're already there. We have been for years. That's why they question
it. We know what the Constitution says.
Right, but it's also we do it socially as well. Like we built ourselves on learning that lesson. They feel like it's forced upon them. Listen to the language about the fucking Affordable Care Act and Obama, and it sounds very hypersexualized. He was shoving it down our throats, right?
Yeah, true that. True that. You're right. But also when we go down to the fairness doctrine, this all tracks back to two things. The entire problem with our country right now tracks down to two things. Roger Ailes convincing Reagan to drop the fairness doctrine and Citizens United. Those are the two things that got us in this situation right now. We had a propaganda machine called Fox. Now everybody's doing it, including MSNBC. The reason this fucker got elected is 100% because of our media just sanewashed the guy in a way that I've never seen before. I kept talking about it, like, you guys keep talking about this guy like he's not a treasonous scumbag who tried to overthrow the government, wants to sleep with his daughter. What are you guys doing? When we were in Scotland, Hal, we were in a cab. My wife and I we did the Fringe Fest. And it was amazing to me how once people found out we were American, the first question was, how the hell can you guys elect this guy? Bankruptcy alone would have just exiled him. He would never have had a chance. So between these two things and Citizens United, no one understood that we were going to have one guy, citizens. So corporations are people. The guy spent $260 million to get the worst person we've ever seen elected as president. So how do we fight that? We can't fight that. The only way we fight that is for people have to elect Democratic leaders that are going to pass laws so it doesn't happen. And we're too stupid to do that.
Well, state by state, as a nation, I see what you mean. Like, let's talk to, like, Trump brings up the election or the education standards of the United States all the time. Like, we're 42nd in the world, or we're 50th in the world, or some shit like that.
47 there.
Without 5 of the southern states, we'd be like 15th. With
if we just excise Alabama, we're better.
We
move up the rankings.
If you take Louisiana, Alabama, the fucking Florida Panhandle, Arkansas, Oklahoma, fucking
Mississippi. Don't forget Mississippi. They are really dragging us down.
Oh my fucking God. Mississippi's crime stats drive up almost the entire United States' crime stats. The state of Mississippi has a fewer population, I think, than like Chicago, the greater Chicagoland area entirely, and has more like, murder per capita than all the big blue cities that he's always bitching about combined. And it's never not been a red state. All the red states, if you took them out of the equation, the U.S. would be, I believe, third education-wise in the overall United States.
Wow. You mind if I bring this
Third.
up on my podcast? I'm going to add this to my podcast. I'm going to look this up. That's I didn't even think about that.
Well,
That's
because
an amazing-
again, most of the states, most of the countries we're talking about in the world, like Norway or something like that, they got, fucking 11 million people in them or something like that. And they're usually uniformly run like the state of California or New York, right? And on a smaller scale, that's how it works, right? The same thing's true of like Canadian provincial territories. Toronto and fucking Vancouver are, and arguably parts of, well, I wouldn't say Quebec necessarily, but Montreal itself, pretty open, liberal-ish kind of places. But there's a big redneck territory in the middle of Canada, right? In Saskatchewan and Barrie and all these places outside of Toronto and places like that. And it's not that different socially from the United States. The problem is, the issue is there's just fewer people there. So they can crunch their numbers and they go, okay, we just throw a little more money the way education goes. And they'll be at least, their idiots are smarter than our idiots. That's all.
Yeah,
but they're still
true.
idiots. And this is true of a lot of countries. I mean, but in the United States specifically, that's one of the things that I think if we do have a strength point in this, is the concept of a unifying group of blue states, the Blue Governors Association kind of growing out of this, is getting stronger and stronger, especially because of the immigration push. And so you've got these governors working in coordination. It is better at this point, especially if you live in California or New York, because these are very powerful states. They are huge chunks of the economy.
We help the shoeless state, the shoeless sister screwing states. Without us, they're done.
Exactly. So I talked about this with my buddy Rob Glenn, who does Friday Eye with me, about how California needs to start a disaster fund for themselves and tell the federal government, look, if you're not going to run FEMA, before we give any money to the other states, we've got to build up a disaster fund that can cover 3 big wildfires in a row. So we've got to build our own fund for that, for our own citizens, for our own safety's sake. And California can do that. It's like $1.8 trillion economy. It's the 7th biggest in the world, right?
I thought it was less than that. That was 5th or 7th now.
Well, I mean, it shuffles. I mean, I would argue again. The
Can we
China
also
one is
get our
bullshit.
states' rights back? Can we also get our states' right back? So some federal dickhead just can't open up like our dams and then basically screw us for the next fire. Like, I don't understand this.
Right.
Law.
That was federally
screwed us. This is January, bro. We've got June, July, and August and September coming, and you screwed us. You just let all this after the fires. You opened it up after the fires
when it's raining, when we're in a fucking storm front, right? And again, let me be abundantly clear. Where's that water going to dry up? That's the irrigation water. That's not coming to California, to Southern California. That's not coming to LA.
No,
that's coming to Central California for the fucking farmers. And the farmers are the ones in California that voted for him. And those are the fuckers who are. I mean, food prices are gonna go up, and we all gotta be aware of this. You might want to start stocking up on canned shit. Welcome back to pandemic 2.0. But the man is a pandemic, so treat it as such. I don't want to be all prepper about it, but make sure you got some backup and you've got a Costco membership, I suppose, so that you can.
Yeah, we've learned it though. We learned it. It's not like this isn't. The first time they were like, "Oh, you guys are all paranoid. Shut up." This is like, no. We know what this guy can do. This is the part that bothers me. Probably more than anything, is that we're watching the people that voted for him stand by, and they're not standing by like, yeah, go Elon Musk, get into. They're actually kind of stunned. They don't know what to do. If I don't know what to do, or I don't know enough about the system, I keep waiting for Captain America to do something, watching, and there's nothing to do. And I think they're so dumb and so uninformed about our government. They thought that this could happen. Yeah,
I think one of the things you can lock on that's positive is, like you said, like he has lost in the courts on all of these things, because this is really, and they have to be willing to and capable of defending these things in the courts going forward. If they want these things to go forward, if they want to end these programs and that kind of shit, or think he can get rid of them by fiat, they've got to go fight this in the court and see if he can actually do it. He can't, because there are laws upon laws upon laws. So it's a waste of time. So largely, this is puffery. It's a bunch of bullshit. And it is a lot of scattershot nonsense to cover what they really want to do. The issue is that how much... it's like, how in Heat, they brought in the one guy where they're like, he's a new guy, we had to replace the other guy. It's a little bit of a wild card, but, and that dude fucks up the whole thing. Okay, Imagine if that guy was Gary Busey. Not playing the character, but the actual Gary Busey.
Gary Busey. Oh, God.
Right. And he's like, I got the door covered, man. Don't worry about blam. Was that a noise too much for anybody? Sit down. Like that's... It, not only would it fuck up the plan.
Very nice, Busey. Very
Thanks
nice.
very much. I spent a night in a haunted house with him, so I've been up close and personal.
Oh, shit.
True story. So, but the point I'm trying to make is that these guys were like, he's a great businessman and he's found his way around all these things, whatever. Back in 2016, they really believed this. Now they're all like, that's not what we talked about at all, right? And
so that's what he's doing. He's claiming just understand, by doing all this stuff, and you getting mad. I realized today I don't have to get mad anymore, because when a judge goes basically, so they go to file this case on a birthright citizenship, and the judge basically says, the fuck is this? The judge was like, what? This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen a lawyer give me. So what I really got was, Trump's always about the perception, never about the result.
The result,
so,
yes.
So just pay attention, because there's going to be something comes up that's very serious. What he's doing now, going into Gaza. So we're going to send troops in. That's not going to happen. What he's doing now is he's trying to let his voters know that, see, I did what I told you I was going to do, but those guys didn't let me. Well, he knew they weren't going to let him. And to all you people, to all you Democrats out there who are basically saying, you know what, man, I don't like her stance on Gaza. She's not backing Gaza enough. And so I'm just not going to vote. Good job, guys.
Yeah.
Good job. What did you think the other side was going to do? The guy who's guy who's basically when Netanyahu's got orange on his lips, and you think that guy is going again.
Well, I mean, my point is that I went to the DNC this year, and I saw the protesters outside. Didn't see any of them go down to Mar-a-Lago when Netanyahu was meeting with them there. Did you?
Right.
Not a single person with a fucking sign going, get out of Gaza. When it was Netanyahu himself was in the building. Were they there? No, because it was all fucking puffery. In the same way that I think they're behind a lot of the kind of faux protests that they have out there. So what I would urge everyone to do is check your jargon and make sure you're talking like a real person right now, because people are going to use passwords all around you and act like they're on the right side, and they're not going to, and they aren't. They fucking aren't. That's what that was.
Stop the virtue signaling and actually fucking do something.
And have some virtues.
Rich Maddow, please stop saying the word shambolic. Just say chaos. Yes. Stop saying it. You found a new word. We get it. We love you. You're awesome. Just chaos.
Who said that?
Huh? She keeps saying shambolic every day. This is a shambolic administration. And I want to turn the TV off, and I like her. And I'm like, just stop. Don't find a...
Shambolic sounds fabulous.
We are so performative. We are so performative. And the reality is, look at, yeah, we didn't vote for the people that, the Democrats that weren't backing up Gaza. So instead, you let a guy who's going to level it and put a resort on it. Yeah. And the Gazans, he's basically talking about, and you fucking knew.
You fucking knew. He said so.
We need more Democrats that are ballsy instead of these. Look at me. We stop being look at me Democrats and get fucking busy. That's what we got to do.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think we've got a few certainly, and they're gaining steam because of the very thing you're talking about. They're punching their way to the front of the line. I have been saying that the Democrats have a responsibility. They've only got a couple of capabilities, actual things they can do. So we got to, I keep my criticism well within the things they can do, the things they can stop, things they can divert, the things they can mitigate. If they can't, I don't give a shit. If they do show votes or whatever on stuff that's going to pass, anyways, I give a rat's ass. That's just fucking flappery. But what Democrats need to do is every time Trump shows up and talks about infrastructure, Dems need to beat their chest about we passed that bill. Flat
Get
out.
loud,
Don't let him have it.
yes.
Get loud and take pride in what you've built. The ACA, the reason, the question when he brings up the ACA as a disaster is, wait a minute, you can't come up with anything better than a disaster? Like, really? That's the standard. That's the bar, and you can't go anything better than a disaster. You haven't been able to concoct anything better than a disaster. Great job, dude. So we need to beat our chest on our successes, and there's going to be a little bit of time.
And scream louder about what he's really trying to do. But it has to, but here's the problem, and here's the problem. The problem is that to make that happen, we need the media, and the media loves the chaos this guy does. I have watched the MSNBC people get excited that Trump's doing some crazy shit again. And Katie Tur seems like a chaos agent. And ask me one more thing. I called John Fetterman's office yesterday and left a scathing message. What is going on? Listen, if you have a stroke, I think you should not be able to be in Congress. What happened? If you can't put on pants, let's just go at a base level. Congress, you gotta wear pants. Can we do that? Because what he's done is, I don't understand what's going on with these people. What do they think they're doing? This is not Mitt Romney. This is a psychopath. And why are you voting with a guy that literally would set you on fire? I don't get it, man.
I would argue in a couple of places that he is so easily manipulated, Trump is, that suddenly he doesn't mind Fetterman. He likes Fetterman. And Fetterman, while he speaks a good game, I think he voted for Bondi. He didn't vote for Hegseth. He's not voting for RFK, right? That was the idea. Everybody thought he had voted for Hegseth, right? And he had not.
But even Bondi, it's like here's the bar has been lowered so far.
Agreed.
It's like none of these people have any business being in this government. None of them. There's not anybody with any experience. Hegseth has a white supremacist, white nationalist tattoo on his chest. We've got one guy throwing up Nazi symbols, and we got a guy who's now running our military who basically has Nazi symbols on his chest. It's not a Christian symbol. If you trace it back, it goes literally back to the Germans who fucking.
Well, they borrowed everything, though. Again, the Germans, swastika is not a German word. It's the Sanskrit word for the symbol that was flipped backwards. So,
I understand, but when you take something that's supposed to be so positive and make it evil. That thing on Hegseth's chest is a white nationalist tattoo.
Which they absorbed it absolutely in the same way that if you had a burning cross or whatever. There was a point where the evangelical movement had that weird flame cross. Do you ever see remember that? Yeah. That was like mid '80s and stuff. That became a thing, and you're like, dude, your fucking hood is showing. Like I said, in terms of Fetterman, he's not my senator, so I can't speak to his ultimate votes on why he would go one way over another one. But again, if somebody's going to pass and he finds it as a buy point to talk to them, I kind of don't care at this point because they're going to pass because we don't have the votes. So at that point,
that's where Democrats fuck up. We saw what happened when we play ball. Fuck that. They don't play ball. This is the problem. We keep talking about maybe Fetterman's. I'm going to play ball with them. We'll get what they do.
Well, there's no ball here, though. Is what I'm saying. There's no ball.
What?
There is no.
Well,
I'm
saying that that's what Fetterman's saying. I've seen these people talk about that. They're like, well, every president gets their picks and blah blah blah. No, not in this situation. This is different times. This isn't somebody putting in a qualified person we don't like. Every single one of these people is unqualified. When he went down, he went to IMDb and started picking people. It doesn't make any sense. So. What you need to do in this situation, and this is where Democrats piss me off, when you have a situation like this where the building's on fire and you have a cup of water and you go, well, I'm going to, I'll help. I'll do what I can. Stop. Just fucking stop. Let it burn down because the only way.
Well, is that a reason for voting for the people, though? Is that actually?
We're not going to get out of this, but we're not going to get out of this. Listen, by having the Democrats continue to hold it up like they tried to do last time, we're not going to get out of it. Because what's going to happen is he's going to blame the Democrats. They're going to try. We need to just go. Honestly, I believe at this point, you just got to go, you know what, man? Go ahead. Do what you're going to do.
Well, that's what I think. That's the argument for voting for all of his people. That would
No,
be
no,
the
no,
argument.
no, 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 no. No, we still
Because they're
no.
going to pass.
See
Well,
that?
no, wait, because they're going to
No,
pass
then
anyways.
no. No,
right?
I'm saying
they're
we
going
have
to get
let
through
him
anyways.
fail.
And if you're like, dude, do
Ah,
your worst.
I don't. All right, I don't like arguing with you because you're better at it than me. So, so I'm just angry. I like you're the guy that goes, "Let me talk some common sense," and I'm like, "Shut up, give me a baseball
Fuck
bat."
you,
That's how
common
this
sense.
goes for me.
Dopamine, right?
You're calmer.
Right.
You'd be a better sensei than me. I'd be like, "All right, children, we are not children in here. We're opponents."
That's right.
I think we need to every day need to be angrier, and the problem is the Democrats have this tendency. This everything's on fire. It's the house is burning down, and it's time. And this is not a normal time, and they can't.
Okay. I will give
well, let me finish. And the Democrats continue to try to go, well, we have to follow the established norms. Yeah, sometimes, and then sometimes not. And this is that time when we don't. The established norms are we don't have a guy who committed treason in the White House. The established norms are we don't have a Fox News host running our military. The established norms are norms. We're out of the norms. So Democrats, stop fucking acting like it's normal. It's not. Get fucking angry, get serious, and start talking mad shit. And don't help them at all. Do not help them. And that's what's happening is that there's still this faction that's like, well, we have to, let the government, the government has to work. Yeah, but if you guys are making it work, these guys are trying to destroy it. You got to keep screaming that they're destroying it, because what's going to happen when it doesn't work, Trump's just going to flip it on the Democrats. He's going to go, yeah, they did it. But you got to yell the entire time, we're not doing this, they're doing this. And you, like this is what you said, we need some people very fucking loud, stop virtue signaling and get mad.
I agree. Getting mad has value. Looking mad all the time is what we did last time, and it didn't have the impact it should have. I
think we had Nancy Pelosi. I disagree with you. We had people that continued to follow the norms of democratic government in the face of this guy trying to break all of them. I disagree. I think we had Pelosi, who at best the anger was this. That was at best.
Pelosi isn't my kind of stand for this. I'm more talking about what we do and how we react and the like. In troll world, one of the things that the way they know they're winning is they crank up the outrage machine. And and there is an element of, what I grasp on and what you're saying is that if you're going to let this guy fuck up so that the blame falls strictly at his feet, then obstruction and wailing isn't how you do that. It just isn't. That won't happen, because it'll sound like if you're out there going, we're going to put an end to this and stop it right now, and this has got to end, and this is not right, and blah, blah, blah. Then when it fails on its own merits, because it was never going to work, whatever the fuck we're talking about of his plans, right. When it fails, what are maggots going to say? Well, we saw the Democrats out there saying we're going to stop him, and they probably wrecked it. It was going to work, but they fucked it up. But see, and that's what they come away with.
I agree with that. So
and the low information voter also follows that
damage. Because the damage, it's the same with COVID. Because the damage is going to be so severe, we still got. There's got to be a way to stand up for it in a way that doesn't look like that. And like this USAID thing. That's we're people are going to die. People are going to starve. There's shit that's going to go. There's people are going to get diseases. There's the short-sightedness of all of it is like, guys, so other countries that are our enemies are going to step in and help, and then then those countries are going to be beholden to them, and then we're fucked. We're on such a path. World wars, I always say this, world wars don't start on Thursday. It takes about 3 or 4 years. Yep. And we are in year 3 right now. And now you've got us pulling. I mean, the level of destruction is going to be so severe that we either need a new way to fight, or
that's what I'm presenting. Because I think.
What's your new way? What's your new way? Give it to me, Hal, because I need some help.
During the first Trump era, it was resistance all the time. It was resistance from day one. The impeachment started on day 5, I think it was, and rightly so. It's not like he didn't deserve it. I'm not saying it's wrong for what we did, but lesson learned. It at least on a PR level, it did not have the impact we hoped it would, or people would not wake up to this fact. And there was a marginal voter.
Because the angry dumb people were like, look what they're doing. You're right. The angry
That's
dumb
right.
people.
They thought all of his failed plans didn't fail because he's a fuck up and he doesn't know what he's doing, but because there was this one perfect part of it, and the Democrats made him take it out, and it would have worked. Or if they gave him more time, or if they hadn't reconciled, I'm telling you, that was why he was given a second bite at the apple. And insofar as the American people, 75 million people voted for Kamala Harris, and 70, almost 76, and just under 78 voted for him. So,
and almost 4 million people were illegally taken off the voter rolls. Almost 4 million people were illegally taken off the
a real circumstance, no question. But again, we're operating within the people that actually got their votes counted. It was not a mandate by any stretch. And there are Republicans out there that know that they're in marginal districts. They're on Trump's shit list because they're considered rhinos, because they have to appeal to Democrats and Republicans. And they are in a sense of paralysis right now about what they can do to push back on this. But they also know that the further he goes down this road, the more fucked they are. And the chance that a Democrat will take their seat back next time around. Now, everybody's like, we won't have elections again, blah, blah, blah. That's the fight. That's when the fight happens. When you want to talk about people on the streets, really, really bad, summer of 2020 meets 92 riots. That's what you're talking about if that occurs. I don't see it happening because, again, he doesn't have the vigor of a Hitler in the second run. Hitler's second run, he was 43 years old? That's that's a big part of the difference. So I would say the anger is valuable. The recognition and the empathy towards the victims of this stuff are valuable. But the presentation of it can't look like what they expect. It can't always look like the easily responded to rage. It's got to look. Okay. It's got to be smarter than that this time around. And they know that they can trigger the outrage machine with this speed run. That's what this whole fucking thing was. Throw 35 things out that everybody will go, oh my fucking God. And everybody will have a pet project or a priority that they will chase down and rage about while the heist is going on. And if you can...
Okay, got it. Yeah. All right, I hear you. I know what you're saying. So as if, so Biden has 0 plane crashes. He goes in, fires the head of the FAA. We fire the head security guy from the FAA, and we have 3 plane crashes in like 9 days. Mm-hmm. So that's what we need to do. All right. You know what? All right. So you're saying let's let him do it, but let's start showing the damage. The problem is that people are going to get damaged. And it was like showing the trucks with the bodies in it during COVID. It's like, guys, we need to get everybody vaccinated. The death rate was double for people that were unvaccinated.
And it ultimately worked. Trump, they started that whole Operation Warp Speed horse shit. I'm sorry, it's if I pronounce it correctly, it's actually Operation Fart Steed.
That's it. That was it. You're right. Yeah.
So,
I like as intellectual as we are. At one point, we have to go to that.
All right. As a comedian, that if you're going to talk about the value of what we can bring, because I believe we're social massage therapists, arguably, and we're the pop top, we're the bullshit detector, we're the pressure valve when the pressure of society gets too much and it's too complicated for people to deal. We go, pooh, it's okay. Here's a stupid version of it, so you can see where it doesn't work. And that not only does it feel good, but it is imperative to the health of a society. Keeping your wits about you in these circumstances. There's that phrase in, I think it's Julius Caesar. Jan Cassius has a lean and hungry look. He would never get panicked. He just always wanted something. And it scared the fuck out of the ruling class because we can't trigger this motherfucker. Right. And there's an element of...
But the problem is, and here again, I'll say it again. The problem is the collateral damage of letting this guy, because what happens is we have to let his policies fuck it up before we go, see?
What happened? I mean, again...
But that's what you're saying has to happen, and I have this thing, and I know you have this too, where I want to defend it and fix it, and you're right, I guess we can't, but man, this new show I'm doing is called Doomed to Repeat, by the way, and I go through all of this from immigration to everything, and man, it's against my nature to not fight, but I hear what you're saying.
No, I'm not.
But
Again, this is one of those things.
No,
like,
I mean, I'm going to fight, but what you're saying, I hear what you're saying is that the best way to do it is to keep showing the plane crash and keep pointing out that Biden had the most DEI policies we've had since Obama, and we had 0 plane crashes. So all of a sudden, this guy shakes up the entire agency, and we have 3 plane crashes in a week. I go, so what do you think?
So
what's more likely?
Right. Well, how do you shape that into a question for him without using Biden's name and laying it at Trump's feet, going, do you think the firing of the FAA leader and the brooming of a lot of people who were qualified, contributed to the crashes, plural, that have happened in the beginning? Like, that's how you do it without giving him the target. Well, Biden did blah blah blah. You don't give him that monkey branch to hang on to.
But again, you want to hear you talk. Like, when I hear you say this, I hear Democrats again not standing up. And here's the thing. You think, and I think sometimes, that the dumb people will hear the reality of it. The dumb people on his side will go, you know what? That makes total sense. I've literally had this happen with a family member. Mm-hmm. Sent them. Literally, this guy used to work for Homeland. He actually is a Homeland Security investigator now. He did work for Border Patrol. Literally sent him every piece of the immigration, the crime rates, immigrants commit crime at half the rate, violent crime at half the rate of people of native-born Americans. Send it to him. This guy's in the organization, and he said, that's bullshit. That's made up. Because they don't care. The only thing they do respond to is when someone comes up against them. You can't back down a guy who's coal rolling a Tesla by just going, man, you're destroying the planet. It doesn't work. And we'll just wait for the planet to come down.
I agree.
So I'm just saying, I hear you. I was on your boat for a second. And now when you have to put it through the filter of who these people are, they don't give a fuck. This guy committed treason. We watched it on television and they denied it. So now we're going to go, just let it fail. Now, I did see on TikTok when he imposed when he cut everybody's pay and he's cutting all the stuff and people weren't getting money. I did see the freak out there for a second and he stopped it very quickly. So there's got to be,
right.
Go ahead.
I think a lot of what he's doing this stuff flippantly or to cause a big news story, and then he rolls it back just like he did the Chinese tariffs. He put in 10% or whatever, and he's holding those. But the Canada and Mexico ones he rolled back right away. He didn't roll them back. Excuse me, I'm allergic to arguing with friends. No,
we're not arguing. By the way, you're actually always training me. I'm always learning, and I see your point of view. I really do.
Here's my primary thought, and maybe it's because I look like an extra from Braveheart right now. But it's my.
We look like we're talking through time right now.
It's my island. I own it. It's my fucking island. So
the robots run everything in my
There is everybody understands the value in the Braveheart moment of riding back and forth on the horse and going freedom, and everybody goes hurrah, and they all run down yeah, and the more you yell, the more the other side goes, oh fuck, these guys are nuts, they're gonna get me, right? That has value in those moments. But if your stealth soldiers also have to yell as they're climbing up the outside of the castle dressed in all black to set fire to the munitions, you're going to lose. And my goal isn't that everybody shut up and not get angry about it, but recognize there are multiple ways to deal with this asshole and give the people on your side of the aisle a big leash to try every possible thing. Because from the Macron handshake, which is what I think Fetterman's doing, to people who are standing outside of the Treasury going, we're going to fight this in the courts in every possible way we can. There's a breadth of ways of handling it on our side that have value. Some of them might be sneak attacks in terms of dealing with budgetary stuff. Some of it might be this motherfucker doesn't even realize the content of the law that he's dealing with, and he's going to get...
Our job is to mock it. Our job, we do on if you guys go to the Titus podcast, Armageddon Update, we put a lot of time into making you laugh about it. So you go.
That's right. And mockery has its value as well, because in the case of Trump, it's one of the few things he actually responds to. He doesn't give a shit if you're mad at him. The maggots don't give a shit if you're mad. If you're mad, they think they're doing something right. They take that as this is it. We've hit the nerve. But if you're like, Yeah, that's gonna work out great. They're like, wait a minute, why do they like what we're doing? What the fuck is
Yeah,
happening?
no, yeah, good job. Well, but Fetterman, please do not give Fetterman this much credit. You have to remember that the same people on the
stroke.
left and the same people, and I hate both sides because there's guys that are great people, smart people on. I think there's so many more smart people on the Democratic side, but then we have our Marjorie Taylor Greens. We have some people that you're like, man, you're not. You think
All
you're
there.
playing three-dimensional chess, and you're not even playing Candyland. You're just not. So. And that's
So again,
me thinking I'm arrogant.
Yeah,
to be
so
that guy.
that's a good question for you. How? And I've held you over because I can. And I'll
love
remind everybody. Check out Titus's everything. Just sign up for his everything. It'll make your life better. Especially if you need to get your anger hard on taken care of. So
I'm that outlet. Yes.
Yeah. I'm the dude with the water valve in Northern California going, I'll cool things off. It's okay.
There's no valve. I kept screaming that the other day.
It's
There's
actually
no valve,
a giant
you moron.
pump. Just right. Motherfucker. Oh my God. So in the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world, if she was sitting right across from you in a situation and you're like, I got to make an hour podcast out of this. I can't just run up and yell at her, you dumb bitch, and run off, right? That's not in the cards. And you want to get, I know, you know what I'm talking about. Like, you can't be a hit and run. You're in it for the moment, and you're trying to get concessions from her on things to make her recognize. And I'll give you an example. All of the new jobs that have been created in Marjorie Taylor Greene's district during her time in office have come from one project, an electric car battery facility that was paid for by the American Rescue Act.
Right.
There's been no other job growth at all.
That she voted against.
And she voted against it.
Right.
So how do you get her to concede that in the time that you have allotted? How do you get her to that point?
But you're actually asking for people to have integrity and morality, and that's what we've really.
No, I'm asking for you to be a manipulative son of a bitch, and she's stupid. So how do you reel her in?
All right, okay, twat, listen up. That's why. Wait, sorry, you're right. That's let me. That's okay. That my first pass was not good. My first pass.
All right, so
I would say the great news is that how many jobs have been added in your district since you became the representative. That's amazing. How many jobs? That's incredible. So you're running on that. And what did you do to create those jobs? Mm-hmm. Just tell me what you did. Well, so did you? I would just ask, what did you do to create those jobs? Tell us what your commitment is. And here's the problem with all these politicians, and I watch it on the right. It's and it's, by the way, politicians through history. It's why everybody hates politicians and attorneys, is that it's just this morass of bullshit. And
it's a surrogate for hating the public.
Right. Right. But then you could even ask, this is a gotcha question. So here's what they say. You go, so what act made that plant happen? The Recovery Act. Okay, good. Did you vote for that? This is a gotcha question. I'm not here to do this. And they walk out. And then their base goes, ha ha, see that? She stuck it to him. So that's what I'm saying, is that there is a base level integrity and morality that we have just stopped having. You have it, I have it,
I agree. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. My point is, how do you get her there and to where she can't do that dunk and walk out? What would it take linguistically? What would it take in that moment?
How? You tell me. How do you get her to not? Even if you ask simple questions, you tell me how it goes. Go ahead. And how and action.
I primarily go, what's it like being a congressperson for your district? What are some of the challenges you faced, being a congressperson that maybe were a surprise to you? Let her answer that question. Obviously, jobs in your are one of the things that you ran on or whatever. There's been a slight uptick in them. That's been good. Are there other projects in the works to try and make sure that? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the primary one came from the factory over on yada yada, right? This particular factory.
You basically suck her in far enough. You go down. You do a 10-question. Basically, get her to her head underwater.
You make her describe the interior of the fucking place. You walk her. You make her tell you that she's ahead of. We don't need the Green New Deal because we have an EV battery factory in my place, and I worked with Democrats to get the funding. Blah, blah, blah. You walk her into that rake, and because that's the only way it's ever going to be that way. And I get that it's not going to be easy, and I get that it's a pain in the ass, and I get that there's a bunch of fucking stupid people, but I'm never talking to the person that I'm talking to. I'm always talking to the person over their shoulder. The person who's not 100% bought in, who's not completely in the sales pitch that they're pushing, but might be open to what I'm saying if I'm charming, more at ease, and better have a better grip on reality.
After being in this for 8 years now, your naivete is beautiful. I want to hug you. I literally want to give you a stuffed animal and let you go take a nap. I'm telling you, man, we are to the point. We are to the point now where they don't care. They even know they're wrong. If anything, they're angrier because I think after 8 years of this, there is a knowing in them that this is crazy. But he built up the immigrants, and he built up woke, which what the fuck? I'm woke as fuck, by the way. You know what that means? I'm awake. It means I see what's happening in the world and I pay attention to it.
Right.
The opposite of woke is asleep or dead. And so I really love that your optimism, but I'm so far past optimism with these.
I'm not. Oh, by the way, I think you confused my ease with optimism. I'm not optimistic about this at all.
Okay. All right.
I also, I don't think I can punch a tiger in the fucking face, right?
True that.
I'm fairly certain that in a circumstance where it was me and a butter knife, I'm kind of fucked, right?
Yeah.
But I certainly am not going to have any impact unless I move to the side a little bit and stick it in the flanks, right? Yeah. That's the only option I have. For real. All right,
I will. In a combat situation, I will accept this. I will accept this metaphor.
And you have used combat language entirely throughout the argumentative aspect of this, and you're absolutely right because it is. You can argue that it is a fight between ideologies, and that is absolutely true. But what's happened is we're in a situation where it's now more functional to use a form of Aikido than it is to just be a stand-up boxer. It reminds me of that scene in A Fish Called Wanda where he goes, I used to box for Oxford. He's like, yeah, well, I used to kill for the CIA. You know, like that. Yeah. There's an element of we need to learn that lesson on our side. It doesn't mean we don't get angry. It's like, how do you channel your anger into something that's useful, instead of something predictable?
But you're also betting on the other side, and we've seen there is no insight on the other side. These people will continue.
On the other side, I would only appeal to self-interest.
Here's what we haven't seen in 8 years. Here's what we have not seen in 8 years. You ready?
Right.
From a magazine. Oh, that's a good point. Oh, we've never seen that. So I agree with you, man. But this is the democratic optimism that continues to hurt us. Is that yes? Dude, your point is very well taken. The problem is you have to have a modicum of intelligence to actually see it when you do it, and they don't. And so they start blaming somebody else for that, or well, she did it because of blah blah blah.
Okay, then my goal is in their case is only disengagement. I don't want them to think I'm right or whatever. I just want them to throw up their hands and walk away from the table and not.
I guess you're right. I mean, that's a good point. I mean,
okay.
So if we just don't bitch, if we're not yelling and screaming all the time, letting them fail, because talking them through it has not worked. So if we just let them go. We continue to do everything we can do on our side without getting mad, and then watch them fail.
And have blue states pick up the pieces. So blue states, if you want to put your effort into fighting for something, then you want legislation that protects real people to come from states that give a fuck. And if the federal government is going to leave states' rights up to these redneck states that are just going to cut off their own nose to spite their face, that's something that they have to go through. Meanwhile, if you're going to want to protect minorities and people who are in trouble, you do it on the state level. I have a bill I'm introducing to the California State Legislature about making sure that if there are bots online, they have to be labeled on any website, any social media. If it's a bot, it has to you just got to be to tell people. You just got to let people know.
Okay, so
And
and by the way, and I can give you examples of this. You're absolutely right. I thought about this 2 days ago. So all these rednecks are like, I want to keep my fast gas car. I want to keep my fast car. You know, the cars that like literally the last Dodge Challenger. This is just a sidebar. Put out like 805 horsepower. Do you know why? Because California introduced the CARB laws and the exhaust emissions laws, which forced companies to get the electronics together to make the car run so efficiently it put out basically zero pollution or close to zero pollution.
Yep.
Because of that, we had a Dodge Challenger that had 800 horsepower. So to you rednecks that think that these people are trying to ruin your cars, they're not. You have a 500 horsepower pickup truck because of the California Air Resource Board putting those laws on the books that forced Delco and all these other companies to come up with the electronics
to make a better car.
To make your car badass.
Right.
So California,
but that was done through California, right? That's a great idea. So whether they know it or not, that's true. If they're buying that car and they're buying the newest car with that kind of shit in it, it's because California passed a law and the standard from that state was so strong that the rest of the states had to live up to it.
Yes.
Right. So I would say, yeah.
I think so. All right. So, well, California being as big as we are, I think you're right. Okay. So we should just keep passing. I love that people keep talking shit about California. The fires upset me a lot because people were like, good, I hope it burns down. And I was like, well, you guys have clothing and food because of us. Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
It really
biggest
hurt.
Ports in the country, largely. Yeah. And my point being is that you want to take real action. It's not going to come through this White House. They've got to be given enough rope to hang themselves. But if you want to protect real people on the street, real people in real circumstances, you're going to do it at the state level for the next 4 years. That's what's going to happen.
And city level, guys. Because listen, this
if you're in a big enough city,
this administration is going to. It's a heist. They're going to fuck everybody over. They're not. There's nothing they're up to that's up to helping you. Just know that. And I'm talking. We put a benefit on for the Salvation Army last year. There's always something you can do. And as frustrating it is, I think Hal's exactly right. Get involved locally.
Yes.
Because if we all did that, then it's global.
It'll nullify what he's able to do anyways. Right. And it's not like he's going to pull up National Guard from California and New York and send them to fucking Gaza anyways. And so again, there are ways to actually make impactful changes on it by squeezing him, not just through suing when he does something wrong, but creating states laws that benefit the people of those states that other states will want to participate in. And so then
we can go, guys, wait, hey, whoa. You said states' rights. How come, how come you
exactly.
And now wait, we're just doing what we want to do, and you want to change it. That's what I'm saying. The water thing bothered me crazy. I'm like, you just sent some people in federal government to fuck us. You fucked us.
Right.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Hey, can I tell you something, man? I got to go, but I want to tell you, I am always smarter and a little calmer when I leave your show.
Good,
and I love that you will. So many people in this world cannot have I don't know. I wouldn't call what we do an argument, but a fun debate without getting that. And you always give me another way in and out. So I appreciate it, man. You're a smart man, sir.
Thanks. I appreciate you, brother. And it's always an honor to have you on the show. And people in the chat love you as well and want me to convey that in sort of, I got to say, overly personal and a little gross ways. But I leave that up to, if they want to dox you, that's up to them. I'm not going to carry out what they're asking me to carry out. But I agree that you deserve it. I just don't feel like I'm physically capable of delivering.
And by the way, I had a box dye issue. I did something. I realize I'm a narcissist, but I'm a half-assed narcissist. Not because I had some gray I didn't like, and I'm like, I'm going to fix this. And so, but a narcissist would have gone to a salon. I'm a half-assed narcissist. I went to Walgreens, and I just ruined it. So all you ask, what happened to his head? I apologize. I'm playing a Bond villain. I'm playing a Bond villain. I
like it. Yeah. No, it's good. Look, man, nobody can even touch me. When I run for president in 2028, this is the outfit, man.
Man. I will help
I'm keeping my fucking hair, and I'm not bullshitting. If Marianne Williamson can stand on that fucking stage and embarrass the shit out of the rest of us, at the very least, I can be up there to go, I used to work for you. Simmer the fuck down.
Much love for the French shirt, by the way. Much love.
Well, that's what I was going to show you. Is that I wore this in your honor today.
I saw it earlier. I have the exact same shirt, which makes us really.
I know
really
you do,
best.
and I also
We're besties
know
now.
I have this guy like just sits right off.
Oh, come on,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
I've got the leopard one. I've got the wood, the orangey wood one with the leopard on it. I got.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, this one's pretty
All
good.
right, man.
All right,
We'll do a Prince. We should do a Prince podcast one time. All right.
We were supposed to a long time ago before hell broke loose, and then we will again because look, I have a lot of respect for the band that played on the Titanic. Those people were fucking artists.
They were, and they gave a shit.
They really
did. There was a comic going, can I get a set? Let me just, you guys finish this classical piece, and I'm going to do 5. I got 4 jokes about, my whole lifeboat chunk is coming up. Let me get this out.
Right, yeah. Look, we're all floaters now. Nothing? You're awesome.
Right,
Thank you so much, brother. All right.
See you, holes, man. See you, brother.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. There he goes. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Titus. Hanging in there with me for a good long extra, and then chat room hi there. Excellent conversation, excellent, and he and I definitely come from different schools of, I was about to say thought, but that's not fair. Tactical. We come from different tactical angles, and that's good. You don't want everybody playing the fucking, like a symphony does not need everybody playing the same instrument. And right now, across the board, my way of thinking, we got, we're all timpani players. It's just all timpani, just boom, 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 all the time. And it's, after a while, it becomes indistinguishable from noise, and nobody knows what you really care about. So it's important that we have these distinctions. And one of the things that, kind of what we talked about was that Trump is flooding the zone with this stuff so that everybody can pick their own little thing and get enraged about it, so that it kind of disperses the anger towards him overall. And what I think needs to happen is that the individual issues are meaningless compared to the overall catastrophe and chaos of the entire administration. His goal is to wreck the government so that China and Russia have an easier time dismantling us, to take us down a notch closer to them. That's under the guise of America first. That's what he's doing. And as simply as we can put those things, the better off we'll be. Again, feel your feelings, but how do you get to the point where you solve those feelings? You quell those feelings. You find a solution to those feelings faster. It's just continuing to do it? Sometimes maybe, I don't know, in an argument with a loved one. But in a true crisis, I think stability, patience, and focus and true direction has value. There you go. Germinate on that, and I'll see you guys this afternoon. Oh, and I got to turn on my music. I'm sorry. I keep forgetting that I have to do that manually now, which is just so naughty. I apologize. Here we go. Let's go with this one.